My dad was treated like a slave the whole time he lived in the convent. Early in the morning before breakfast and after school, he had to work for the nuns, obeying every order, cleaning bathrooms and dorms, doing dishes, laundry, and outdoor work, all without pay. If he disobeyed their orders or failed to do any job, then the nuns would call in the priests and they would administer punishments, the severity determined by the infraction committed. For the least serious infraction, he was whipped on both hands with a heavy leather strap. He was not allowed to show any signs of pain, otherwise more blows were given. For more serious infringements, his hands were placed in ice water and then whipped. Sometimes he was made to sit in a bath of ice and then spanked on his bare naked behind with a wooden paddle. Hunger was used as a form of punishment, and he was often sent to bed without dinner. In other instances, they would put him out in the cold winter night without a coat until he was practically frozen. The most serious offenses, such as running away or stealing, were always punished by rape. My father was regularly tied up, bound hand and foot, and then sodomized. This started from the time he entered the system, when he was only 4 years old. And these terrible things happened to many other kids. Dennis pointed the shotgun at me as I stood like a prisoner about to be executed with outstretched arms. With all the dramatic tenor at my disposal, I shouted, "Go ahead, shoot me." Though Dennis had placed the safety clip on, he told me later that he decided to lower the gun, just in case, placing it under his arm instead of bracing it against his shoulder. He then pulled the trigger. Boom! Off went the gun. The safety clip had inadvertently slipped to the off position. The shell ricocheted off the floor next to my right foot and plastered a big hole in the wall behind me. This was the game changer. Within 6 months of the severe and final beating we received from our dad, we decided to run away from home. We formulated a plan, all in the course of a day. We had become fully adept at stealing and feared nothing except our dad. He was the primary reason for our running away, and we felt completely competent to survive on our own. So with Dennis leading the way, we embarked on our escape from the psychic prison of a violent home life. Our time away from home, which included running around the city, stealing our food and other items as wanted, lasted a total of exactly 1 week. I was 8 years old, and Dennis was 12. My poor mother, what she must have gone through. I'm sorry, Mom. I connected deeply and profoundly to the great music of Beethoven. The first real connection happened one night when I was peaking on an acid trip. I was 12 years old. I came home and was enraptured in a very expanded mental and emotional state, having spent most of the evening in philosophical conversation with Wayne, my closest friend at the time. I went into the rumpus room where the upright practice piano was kept. I could hear in my mind the exciting passages of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata that I loved. I retrieved the piano score from the shelf where all the sheet music and books were stacked. I began to play it, slowly at first, as it was beyond my accomplishments at the time, yet I felt the essence of it in my bones. I played very quietly as my parents were asleep upstairs and I didn't want to awaken them. I went on for some hours without any interruption. At a certain point, I experienced a oneness with the music and was playing at that time my favorite part of the first movement, where the allegro starts. I executed it like a concert pianist would, right up to speed, and I had a vision of myself in a future scenario performing it for an audience. I was completely elated and knew in that moment that becoming a pianist was my destiny. From that day forward, I took to practicing the piano with vital interest. So, this was me at 12 years old on acid. Check it out. When I was 12 years old on the acid trip, I was talking about this one section where the allegro starts that I managed to be able to play, and it's this part. At 12 years old, I played that. It took quite a while, but I finally got it, and I could see myself in the future, playing it on a stage. Might have had something to do with the acid. Okay, so now I'm going to play that, the Pathetique Sonata by Beethoven. It's a very heroic piece. It was one of his really landmark pieces that showed his dedication to, the equality of man, the human rights. He wanted democracy. He was hoping that Napoleon would liberate Europe from the police state. And you can feel all the things of the hero, the rage, the quest, the romance, the struggle, and the completion, the final coming to. So you can really feel Beethoven, his heroic spirit, and his rage about the injustices. I auditioned for the great teacher Dr. Lahano at the University of Alberta when I was 14, and this is how it went down. I arrived at his studio, and after being introduced to each other, I sat down and started to play a piece from the composer Granados titled Andaluza, number 5 from his 12 Spanish dances for piano. Before I could finish the piece, Dr. Lahano interrupted me and prompted me off the piano bench with a gentle shove, instigated by what I assumed was his frustration with my performance. I was wondering what the hell was going on as he took the seat at the piano. I was impressed by the way he sat back so casually, very relaxed. He began playing the Andaluza. Wow, this truly was one of the most powerful and influential moments of my life. I'm sure my jaw dropped halfway off my face as I stared in awe and wonder as he performed a masterful rendition of the piece. In that absolutely thrilling moment of musical revelation, an undiluted inspiration dawned in me and a certain conviction. I was instantly reborn. I do not exaggerate. I would henceforth be committed and devoted to my new musical aspiration, believing that someday I would be able to play the piano like Dr. Lahano played in that magical and inspired moment. So I was saying on the screen about my audition with Dr. Ernesto Lahano. I was playing a Spanish piece for him. It was for my grade 10 Royal Conservatory piano exam, and I was all proud of myself thinking this is really great. I'm going to show him what a great pianist I am. And so I played something like this. Next thing I know, he's like beside me and he's got his hand on my shoulder and he's like pushing me off the piano. Like, what's he doing? First time I met him, he sat down. Didn't sit like this like me. He sat back, took a deep breath, very relaxed, and he started playing. In my book, I wrote 13 letters to the Pope, and I called them epistles. Thus the title, Epistles to the Pope. Here is one of those epistles. Dear Pope, I'm struggling again today. They say that struggle is necessary for spiritual growth. I found myself in a somber mood, longing with all my heart to be engaged and employed in the vocation I love, classical piano performance, to be able to offer to humanity my musical gifts, along with psychological and spiritual insights, completing my creative potential and fulfilling the honorable task of sharing beauty and knowledge. This, my human aspiration. However, I find myself deflected from the pursuit of such personal happiness through the intrusion of compulsions and self-defeating insecurities, causing lengthy disruptions in my creative process. As it stands, a plenum of negativity was set into the fabric of my being, resulting from the mortal sins committed against my father and passed on to his family. The pain and anguish are driven deeper by your refusal to apologize for the commission of those mortal sins. This refusal of yours to express heartfelt contrition haunts me on a daily basis. It's like rubbing salt in a deep and already festering wound. You claim to offer the bread of life, while in fact you are distributing the cold breath of death. You are like the chameleon that hides its true colors for two purposes: first, to escape detection, and then to gain advantage over its prey. When a wound is so deep, at some point, the victims must renounce all irrelevant preoccupations and make it a priority to focus on their healing journey, engaging all of their capacities with a courageous spirit, acquiring information and aligning with allies to rout out the malignant disease. This is what must be done, each in their own capacity, if one is to survive the hellish ordeal of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. And this is what you must do to effect a return to a relative homeostasis in your church. Every day I fervently hope and pray that this document will impel you and the church, the congregation of Christian believers worldwide, to offer justice through restitution, reparation, the making of amends, and finally, and most importantly, to achieve spiritual reconciliation. However, until you know sincere contrition, a heartfelt repentance with a desire to make amends, the evil epidemic emanating from the Vatican will continue to metastasize throughout the world, destroying the lives of tens of thousands of boys and girls, as it did my father's, sending many to the grave devoid of justice. What a tragedy on earth and in heaven. What a great sin against God. What a victory in the world for evil. Let us pledge to reach a just settlement and vow to end the institutional corruption. Sincerely, Daryl Verville. My first year of university ended with a magnificent success. I won the Edmonton Open Piano Concerto competition with my performance of the Grieg Piano Concerto in A minor. It happened in an unusual way. I had actually missed the application deadline, a consequence of my absent-mindedness concerning practical details. Dr. Lahano was terribly disappointed, as we had been planning it for a while. A couple of months went by, and it was 2 weeks before the actual competition when one of the contestants suddenly dropped out. This created an empty time slot in the competition, and Dr. Lahano was quick to secure me as the replacement contestant. I vividly remember the day he told me I was in the competition. It was during a break in classes, I was on the third floor of the Fine Arts building at the University of Alberta, where all the practice rooms were. Dr. Lojano intercepted me and gleefully told me the news. My heart jumped right into my throat, and my heart started pounding with an acute anxiety attack. I was familiar with the high anxiety in many of the nightmares I had, as well as in the countless times being confronted by my dad. But I never experienced this level of distress concerning a piano competition. On the other hand, there was good reason for the bout of nervousness. I still hadn't learned the cadenza and didn't have the whole piece memorized. Throughout the hour that the anxiety attack transpired, I knew I had to go through with it, prepare, and be ready for the competition. And that meant practicing many more hours than usual. I managed to summon the requisite commitment and energy, and along with a couple of extra lessons, I had the concerto ready for the competition, which was conducted in the Fine Arts building of the university. There were 2 winners selected to perform the first movements of their respective piano concertos with the Edmonton Youth Orchestra. Both were students of Dr. Lojano. Linda Stringham won with her rendition of the Saint-Saëns Piano Concerto No. 2 in G minor, and I in my performance of the Grieg Piano Concerto No. 1 in A minor. Paul and I will now perform the Grieg Piano Concerto for you. You know, I want to say that Paul Dykstra, a great accomplished pianist, him and I go back a long way. We were in university together many, many years ago, decades ago, and we became good friends. We were competitors. I competed with him, he competed with me. He won some, I won some. But he was a star at the university, and we really formed a really wonderful relationship. It was more than just the music. It had a spiritual component to it. And then, you know, I dropped out and I went on my journey into hell, as my book describes. And then last summer, Paul Dykstra, he came to Nelson, looked me up, he got together with me and he said, you know, I saw you on YouTube and I wanted to have a visit. So we talked about everything. We talked about my book. And I said, you know, I'm going to try and play a little bit of the Grieg Piano Concerto because it's part of the book and the memoir of when I won the open piano competition when I was 18 years old. And Paul looked at me with a good, bright, strong gaze and said, I'll do the orchestra part. He said, I'll make it sound like an orchestra. I said, Paul, you'll do it? He said, well, we're going to do it. Well, now here we are. Paul has done it. He learned the orchestra part. I learned, the soloist piano part. And it's really our great pleasure to be together, to play together. And we're going to play the Grieg Piano Concerto for you right now. This next section is when I was in the living hell that lasted really for several years. That event wasn't enough, apparently, because about 2 weeks later, back in Vancouver, I was having another hellish night in another very similar drug binge stupor. I really did have a serious unconscious death wish. I was in the middle of the night, and I started to feel the way I had when I overdosed 2 weeks before. I went to the kitchen sink, filled a cup with water, and attempted to drink it. The next thing I knew, I was gazing into what appeared to be a night sky, speckled with pinpoints of light like stars. I had the conscious thought, "This is it. I'm dying." With that thought, I came back into my body. I had fallen on the floor with the glass of water hitting my face and cutting my cheek. Blood was flowing down my face. I quickly attempted to get another drink of water when suddenly I found myself looking up into the sky again, drifting upwards towards the little lights. Again, I was returned to my body lying on the floor. I really had to struggle with all my strength to stay in my body and prevent myself from going into the beyond again. I knew this was a fight for my life. I truly did not want to die this way. I started slapping my face and putting cold water on it. I went outside and breathed the air as deeply as I could, all the while praying fervently as I had those years ago when I was visited by the arch demon. This next selection was one of the truly great highlights in my life. A month before we completed my composition of The Rite of Passage, Maria received an invitation to participate in a major collaborative dance performance with the Hokkaido Contemporary Dance Company operating out of Sapporo, Japan. Maria wrote the director and informed her about the piece we were working on and that we had completed pieces of the work ready for performance. The director responded, extending an invitation for me to come and participate in the show. She generously scheduled a slot for us to perform 2 selections from my Rite of Passage for the Sapporo performance. This was 1989. The public performance went over very well with the full house audience. A huge reception happened for all the performers. We, the performing artists, were given the red carpet treatment. During the reception, the artistic director of the Russian company approached me, and in his functional English conveyed to me how impressed he was with my Rite of Passage. He enthusiastically proclaimed to me that the Russians back at home had never seen anything like what we were doing and said how unique and innovating our work was. He invited us to come to Russia and engage in a joint performance tour with the Novosibirsk Ballet Company. I replied that we would be absolutely honored to perform with them in Russia. We parted on great terms with the Russians and Japanese, and there was unanimous declaration from all the participants that the whole affair had been a totally successful joint performance. A month later, we received the formal invitation to participate in the tour of Russia with the Novosibirsk Ballet Company to perform selections from my Rite of Passage. Maria injured herself 1 month before the tour was scheduled to take place, so tragically, our tour with the ballet company in Russia was canceled. That still hurts to this day. So again, on the screen, I was talking about my performance of the Rite of Passage, which Maria and I performed in Sapporo, Japan. Now, the thing that you may not know is you'll see in the performance, and by the way, these pictures that you'll see are of the live performance in Sapporo. 3,000 people, was also televised. And you'll see that I'm wearing a mask, because I had come to the place, and as some of you know, I couldn't play in front of the public for a long, long time. I took a clown workshop, and in that clown workshop, we built masks. This went on for 6 months, this clown workshop with Daryl Cashman. At the end of it, we did a performance wearing the masks that we had made. And to my extreme delight, when I put on the mask, I could totally perform and be completely relaxed because I knew that they couldn't see me. I was hidden. So I had the idea, maybe this is the way I can play in public. I'll create a show that has masks, and I'll wear the masks, and I should be able to play. And it worked. So in this, the pictures that you'll see going along with this piece that I played live with Maria, this piece is from Franz Liszt's The Totentanz, which means the dance of death. And it's based on a Gregorian theme that they used to sing in the temples, you know, and it's a very, very simple theme. Just that. But what Liszt does with it, every variation, he puts his magic to it. Sometimes it sounds like Renaissance, and then he'll take it into a Baroque style, and then into the classic, into, you know, the romantic, and even into modern music. Each variation is like a depiction of the character of death. It's a fantastic work. He wrote it for symphony and piano. He also wrote it for piano solo. I'm going to play some of the variations for you now from Liszt's Totentanz.